It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! I think I sang that in like 4 different keys. Oh well, if I look a little rough, it's because I got rained on. Feedback Friday! I didn't want to miss it. Today was a very busy day. As I told the Patreon supporters, become a Patreon to find all this inside scoop stuff, including stuff about my college lectures and the improbable stuff I do when I talk at schools. My lectures are really not a safe space for a lot of people, but people seem to like it. I keep getting asked back, so I'm doing something right. But yeah, that's the stuff that Patreons get, and the fuller story about it raining in January in Canada. Okay, anyway, moving on. You guys were great this week. Thank you for being really cool. I had low expectations for the quality of feedback on the Star Wars video, but I promised I'd do it. And the comments were really great. It was actually really informative. And in that case, it's really not a question of whether I agree or disagree or whether people agree or disagree with me. As I've been saying, it's a movie. Like, people are allowed to not like a movie. People are allowed to like a movie. I just like that you guys engaged and the comments were thoughtful. And, you know, you clearly put a lot of thought into it, which is great. And I find all the perspectives far more interesting. To see people's different positions on it is more important to me than this idea of who's right and who's wrong. So thanks. Those were really, really good comments. Really, really good comments on YouTube. Who would have thought it? And yes, I have not retouched my highlights in a while, so they are growing out. Yes, the ginger is too strong. It was funny. There was a ginger guy in the class I lectured at. I didn't tell this on Patreon, but there was a ginger guy in the class I lectured at, and he kept asking a lot of questions. It was kind of funny. And, you know, eventually I was like, there's 2 of us in one room. When does this happen? But the thing I want to touch on, because obviously it was kind of the big video for the week, I was kind of surprised, and I realized in retrospect I probably shouldn't have been, but the stuff on Oprah and the Me Too movement, much better received than I thought it was going to be. I scripted it because it was dicey, and you guys really seem to like it. You seem to like the scripted stuff even when the production values aren't super high, which is good to know. Going forward, people liked as they called it, Sheldon bashing. I don't consider it Sheldon bashing. I am not trying to bash. It is just my honest opinion on Sheldon. But I deeply dislike Sheldon, and it's not for any political reasons. You guys know I'm not like that. I just do not find him funny. I find him, like, mean, and, you know, he's that guy in nerd circles that just makes everybody else miserable. And but that's neither here nor there. You can have your opinion on Sheldon. That doesn't matter that much. I want to, there was one comment that I'm like, oh, wow. One person commented, when society realizes too late the problem with the patriarchy is the hierarchy, not the men, there's going to be trouble. And I was like, oh, you totally telegraphed part of the next Lady Bits episode, which is so weird, but it tells me it's the right time to delve into that topic. But I asked if you wanted me to go into my feelings on the black dress protest at the Golden Globes. A lot of you said, yes, please talk about that, so I am going to. Wow, I get overexposed when I get too close there. I always have issues with Hollywood protests because protests are supposed to have some element of risk. I think the black dress thing was more of a performance art thing. It was a admittedly powerful image when, you know, the camera shot the audience at the Golden Globes, and it was just this sea of black. I like that men participated too, you know, wearing the black shirts and everything like that. But how hard was it to choose a black dress instead of a dress with color? A sort of protest that actually makes it easier on the people involved isn't the idea of a protest is you're supposed to kind of give something up. You're putting something on the line, risking something, and oh gee, I don't have to pick a color. I can make a relatively safe fashion choice so the fashion police won't pound on me. That actually makes the wardrobe selection for the award show easier. So it's in typical Hollywood fashion, protesting from a very safe distance from any actual risk. I would have thought it would have been much more powerful had they deliberately taken the glamour out of it. So plain black dresses, meaning no adornments, no bling. Because, I mean, okay, they were wearing black, but there's like bling everywhere. There were big, it's funny because when I went to the Geminis years ago, a lot of the dresses look like the one I wore back then. It's like, hey, I can wear it again. Only it's backless and I'm about 3 cup sizes too big to wear that ever again. Tells you how long ago I wore that dress. It's a nice idea, but as I said in the video on Wednesday, it's one of these things that show that Hollywood cares about an issue in the only way Hollywood can care about something, which is from a very narcissistic, safe perspective. And I think it might have been more powerful had there been any sort of giving anything up. Now, I know some people are going to go, but it's the thought that counts. Yeah. It gives what those red carpet things, they're not really protests, they're fashion trends. What they're designed to do is give the media something to report on so the media can repeat the talking point that Hollywood is serious about tackling sexual harassment in the industry. That's what it's designed to do, but that's not a protest, that's marketing. Now, that's an element of protest a lot of protesters should get better at, but, you know, it's not the equivalent of, you know, people going down and joining a massive national protest march on a weekday, which means they have to take the time at work, off work, and they have to get themselves down there. Those people were all going to be there anyway. And then the really awkward reality that a lot of Harvey Weinstein's accusers were not invited to the Golden Globes. Ouch. Now, I get it. Space is limited because they do those tables. So it's not like the Oscars where they pack them in like veal. But it's still, it's kind of a please go away so we can care about you again from a safe distance phenomenon. That was a harsh note. That was like, ooh, not thought out. But the whole thing was vaguely not thought out. I read some stuff about it that talked about the fact that it was the first kind of opportunity that Hollywood had to kind of address that issue because some of the upfronts and stuff like that, everybody just avoided the issue, some of the mixers before the Golden Globes. And so, you know, they were kind of taking a credit where credit's due. At least they addressed the issue argument. But it was addressing the issue. It was almost like, you know, if you address an envelope, it's the equivalent of like putting your return address and then just the person's name and expecting the letter to get where it needs to go. In a very small town, that might work because the postman knows everybody, but not so much anywhere else. And that's why I made the video that I did, because great, you've started a legal fund so that women can sue for sexual harassment settlements. That was happening anyway. Like, yes, some people couldn't afford it, but Rose McGowan did get a settlement. You know, these women did get a settlement. And so they were taken less seriously now because they took the only recourse they could back then, which was payouts. And the thing that was so, like, gross, I hate that term. I guess nefarious is a more adult word. Gross is just so literally can't even right now. But what was so nefarious is that Miramax and then the Weinstein Company had factored in the payouts for Harvey Weinstein's bad behavior as just the cost of doing business. So what's a legal fund really gonna do? I can see the industry just sort of adapting to this and seeing sexual harassment payouts as yet another cost of doing business in budgets that are already crazy bloated with redundant fees anyway. That's why these blockbusters cost bazillions of dollars. And I say this because the black dresses and stuff were designed to promote the Time's Up initiative, and the Time's Up initiative is this legal fund. A legal fund is not going to create the cultural shift I think they expect it will. But, you know, you're talking about the expectations of a group of people who think that wearing a black dress is a big humanitarian act. So we have to kind of give them credit for trying within, you know, what their mens rea can comprehend kind of thing. They're not exactly functioning on the same moral paradigm as the rest of us are. That being said, why can't we expect them to be on the same moral paradigm as the rest of us, right? I mean, I gave Frances McDermott real credit for saying, you know, I don't normally talk about my politics. I keep them private. Grown up in the room. And because she did that, when she actually does make a comment, it means more. Why? She's stepping out of her comfort zone and taking a risk. That's a good example. That's somebody who took a risk. I respect that. But what is gonna actually change things? Well, what's actually gonna change things is if this is actually seen as unacceptable, not something that just makes someone more expensive, a non-starter. If someone has a reputation, people should not continue to hire them. And it doesn't matter that they're a bankable star. It should matter that they're a dirtbag. Now, this becomes difficult because how do you define dirtbag? Difficult thing. I know what my lines have been as somebody who has had to make these decisions, and oh man, they suck. Making decisions on things like this sucks because you're gonna be the bad guy to someone. And in the entertainment industry, that means someone goes around talking trash about you. And the kind of thought process that people usually use is, who is going to make me the least vulnerable by talking trash about me? That's the person I'm gonna sell out. You know, I'm gonna throw under the bus. And people thought, for instance, Kevin Spacey or Harvey Weinstein could really hurt them or their friends in terms of future movies. So they played nice with him, even though the stories about him were fairly well known. The stories about Kevin Spacey were legendary. So, I mean, these things kind of... And Kevin Spacey had a lot of influence. I mean, I remember going down to Comic-Con, and Kevin Spacey was the reason Kate Bosworth was selected as Lois Lane. He, like, recommended her, and it's like... I mean, that's the power some of these guys have, and it's a sort of thing of that... I think somebody made a joke at the time, like, if Kevin Spacey, you know, thinks Kate Bosworth makes a good Lois Lane, it's kind of an indication he doesn't like women much. You know, him being gay was a real open secret. That's why everybody went, oh, come on. And that, I mean, that was the other thing why people turned on Kevin Spacey so hard, is they weren't just keeping one secret. They were keeping multiple secrets for the guy, and then he embarrassed everybody. I made a comment on Twitter about the whole all the money in the world thing. What an ironic title now. Because, of course, after they reshot everything to get Kevin Spacey out of the movie, now they have a pay gap scandal because Michelle Williams worked for an $80 per day per diem, made less than $1,000, and Mark Wahlberg's agent negotiated a $1.5 million additional payday. And I said that, no, you got this story backwards in this case, pay gap advocates. Michelle Williams did the right thing Mark Wahlberg, through his agent, is the one exploiting the abuse of Anthony Rapp and others. And a bunch of people jumped on me saying that I was saying that Mark Wahlberg wasn't, entitled to make money. That's a straw man argument, because both Michelle Williams and Mark Wahlberg had been paid for the film already. This was reshoots. The movie was supposed to be done. Like, this was all additional spending. And people think that Hollywood movies all have these lavish budgets and all that stuff. Art house films like this, they don't. They have to cobble together money from all these different places. They're not the $20 million paydays that the blockbusters are. If it was a blockbuster, I'd absolutely agree that everybody should have to, get paid for reshoots, which is why I thought it was weird that, they in Justice League, that they digitally removed Henry Cavill's mustache. Like, you guys knew there were going to be reshoots on this film. What the hell? Shave. But I don't know the inside and outs. I shouldn't judge on that one. But in this case, this film, that, let's face it, Mark Wahlberg needs to establish some acting cred, because he's not exactly known as a master of the craft of acting. He's a movie star, not an accomplished actor. He squeezes a production that is, already creating greater costs. I'm looking up the budget of this film to give you a sense of how much $1.5 million is in terms of this budget. It's probably a lot. Yeah, the whole movie has a budget of $50 million, which is fairly small. So, like, of that $50 million, $1 million went to Mark Wahlberg for 1 day of work. Sorry, 1 week of work. That was unexpected, and that means the movie has to make more money to make its profits back. It's apparently only, as of January 7th, it's only made $20 million, because it's not a movie. It's the Getty kidnapping. Like, oh yeah, that's a blockbuster. No, it's not. This is Oscar bait. These are small movies. I know you think $50 million is a lot of money when it comes to sets and costumes and props and makeup and all that stuff. That money burns through fast. And we have to actually put this one in context of the pay gap. Because if the people who are like, Michelle Williams should have been paid the same as Mark Wahlberg, it's like, well, let's think about that for a minute. Now, twice the money is being made because an actor was inappropriate with a minor, as opposed to everybody going, this is an extenuating circumstance, and we are reshooting this movie in part so the movie doesn't bomb, so that people can see our work, because this movie might actually get us some sort of award nomination, because this is an acting movie. This is an award movie, not a payday movie. They are different films. And, one person goes, look, I'll be there. I just believe in the project. I want it to succeed. The other guys pay me. I really believe that people should be paid for their work, but he was paid for his work. And I guarantee you there's something about residuals or something about back-end participation. Most films have back-end participation. That's where a lot of the big money is made on blockbusters. When they talked about the big gap in pay between Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, and I was called Gail Simone. Oh my God. Gal Gadot. It was a fudged number, because at that point, the back-end payout for Wonder Woman hadn't come out yet. You can guarantee Gal Gadot made a pretty freaking penny off the back end on Wonder Woman. The whole point is that these movies are designed to make gobs and gobs and gobs of money. So if the movie does well, everybody does well. That's the idea. And when you're getting greedy, if a movie's in a bad spot and, it comes down to the question of, if we don't reshoot these scenes, nobody's going to see the movie because nobody's going to want to run the movie because Kevin Spacey is in it. So all our time and effort and valuable performances are going to be for nothing. You squeeze the production for a payout? I'd never work with that guy again. People think that there's all this money being thrown around, and $50 million is an all right budget, but it's not huge. And as somebody who's had to manage budgets in the millions, I know how quickly you burn through that money. And I've had to have these conversations with, pay me, I know you got the money. And it's like, we don't use that person again because they don't understand the realities of a particular type. There's a difference between being paid fairly, which I'm sure they all had been already, and getting greedy. And I personally think that Mark Wahlberg got very greedy on that. He probably didn't even know. His agent probably just did it and they agreed because they were panicking. And it is that typical how the pay gap is created, that the male talent asks or their representatives ask and the women don't. And sometimes it's based on direction from their clients. Sometimes it's not. We had situations where when we were negotiating deals in the US, we found out the agents were padding the budget to just get more money for the agency. There's apparently a fee in Hollywood that you charge, so you're not going to take any other work at the same time you take the show you're negotiating. It's ridiculous. And apparently this was standard, but we're like, you're increasing the budget to the point that this network doesn't pay that much, and they insisted the game was played that way. Guess who didn't get a show out of the deal? Because the network was like, no, this is too expensive. This is the ridiculousness that Hollywood agents do. So when I say Mark Wahlberg, I want to be very clear, it's not just him. But this is the kind of narcissistic stuff that goes on in Hollywood, and why a lot of people, myself included, are really, really cynical about the Hollywood version of Me Too and Time's Up and all that stuff. Just because they're earnest now doesn't mean it's necessarily going to result in big deal hoopla change. Because there was a big discussion about gender inequality in Hollywood in the 1970s. And then there was a big discussion in the 1990s. And now we're in, the 2010s. Do you notice a pattern? It's odd numbered years every 20 years. Things don't change terribly much. I remember the 90s, they were going on about we need more female directors and we need more quality parts for women because of Thelma and Louise and stuff like that. And in the 70s, because of second wave feminism, we keep having this discussion. And that's the thing about Hollywood. You get rewarded for appearing to care. You don't get rewarded for actually trying to shake things up. Because in the short term, that means change. And the short term, that means fewer short-term profits. And they can't go there. The money people are like, no, I'm in this to make money. So it seems like the solution is that you gotta get the scumbag money people out of Hollywood. Now, this is actually kind of possible because more and more of the money for Hollywood pictures is not coming domestically. It's coming from China and various places like that. Maybe they don't give a damn. They just don't want, because, China, it's all about, face. It's all about, that was actually the word a Chinese Canadian friend of mine said. In China, it's all about face. It's like, don't embarrass me. So, perhaps the influx of non-American money will be good for this. Because if the money isn't followed, if the money people aren't invested in fixing this problem, and it is a legitimate problem, any time people are preyed upon, and we've only barely scratched the surface. This is, framed as a women's issue, but we've only scratched the surface about the abuse of minors in Hollywood because it's just too icky to go there for most people. But until the money people start saying, if you screw up and if you have, bad behavior on your projects, we're not going to finance your next one. Until they start doing that, this stuff's going to continue. It's all about the money. And no number of black dresses in the world is going to change that. So that's my thoughts. Good? Good. Okay, yay, Feedback Friday. Thank you again for the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful comments. Last thing I want to announce is the Rich and Red podcast is coming back. I talked to Rich today. It's going to be live now. We're going to figure out a steady day and time to do it live because it's just less work for both of us. So what I want to know from you guys is what time. It's got to be a weekday and it can't be Thursday or Friday. It'll probably be Tuesday or Wednesday if I'm completely honest. But what time of day works for you? Because when I've done live streams, it tends to be in the afternoon. Is that still a good time? Like lunch hour type thing? That seemed to work well so people can watch at lunch. But maybe I'm totally wrong. We've had a lot of new viewers since Lady Bits went live. So please let me know. What time can you guys watch a live stream? Or just be completely honest that it really doesn't matter because you always watch after the fact anyway. Because you guys know way more about this than I do. I rely on you. Should probably figure out how to set up one of the YouTube polls. But right now I have to go do the Ed the Sock live show. So I am signing off now. Thank you again. Thank you so much for your great comments. You guys are the best. And for those of you who watched that Loot Crate thing that I messed up because I didn't release it, I released it way late, so it was a bad experiment, botched, black, too many variables. Midna claimed the Marauders map box first. Then Binky. Then Lagarto was in it. Then Scout flipped it over and pushed it outside. Then Binky tore one side off of it. So Binky is the one that most solemnly swears he's up to no good. Is anyone surprised? No. Oh, and my buddy Lard D'Souza actually corrected me about the significance of Helga Hufflepuff's cup on a Dark Arts loot crate. Hufflepuff's cup was a Horcrux. I got thrown off because I register as a Slytherin and they're supposed to send you the memorabilia based on, your choice of house. But he's very right. It's on theme. Based on that, the Marauders map is actually off theme more. So points to my buddy Lard D'Souza, who is also an amazing artist as well as a great person and clearly very smart about Harry Potter.